Can you guys hear me? Okay. All right. Look, we're having technical difficulties. Not sure if I'm live. I'm assuming I am, and I'm going to keep on talking. And we're going to wait on Ian to reconnect with us. In the meantime, if you want to go ahead and call in, you sure can. We still have some open lines here. And I'm just waiting for the crew to come tell me what to do. Otherwise, I'm going to just keep talking and try to communicate with them. Okay, well, let me see if I can tell a joke while I'm waiting for everybody to reconnect. There was a fly that, oh, sorry, it's a moth. A moth goes to the doctor. Oh, there's Ian.
That was weird.
Hey, Ian.
That was
not sure what was happening there. I was about to tell some cheesy jokes. But now we're back live. Sorry, that's the nature of call-in shows, folks. Sometimes we get some issues while we're doing this stuff live, and it's especially harder when we're not in our professional studio setup. Also, I'm getting a little bit of echo. Hopefully you guys can correct that. Yep, it looks like it's gone now. Thank you, guys. All right, so back to the show here. I think it's about time we take some calls anyway. So let's go ahead and jump right into that. Ian, you ready?
Yeah, absolutely. All
right, cool. So first, I want to get to Sierra, who has been waiting for a bit here. Sierra from Grand Rapids. Hey, Sierra, how's it going?
Oh, it's going all right. How you doing?
I am doing just fine. Just having a little bit of technical issues here, but other than that, I'm having a good night. So what's up?
Well, yeah, I've kind of called in to ask for some advice about how to talk to my stepdad about some of the questionable beliefs that he has. See, my stepdad, he's an atheist. He doesn't like to call himself an atheist. He likes to define the universe as God and all that jazz. But yeah, he's an atheist, but he isn't necessarily a skeptic. See,
okay.
See, from what he has told me, his epistemology is essentially just his intuition. If he feels something is right, then he accepts that as the truth. Doesn't really look for any kind of evidence or anything to back it up, and
yeah, feels are real, right? The feels are real. I get it. I get it.
Yeah. He believes that the moon landing was fake. He believes that that this is one of the more definitely questionable beliefs that he holds.
So just kind of conspiracy theory thinking in general is what it sounds like. Maybe moon landing being kind of a bigger example. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. His whole ideology thing is kind of a mix between like the conspiracy theory stuff with some spirit science mixed in there.
Ooh, science. A little spicy spirit science in there. It's been a minute since we talked about spirit science.
I don't even know what that is.
Oh, Ian, it's a whole thing. I literally do not have time. I'd have to give you like a 3-hour lecture. Honestly, it goes deep.
Man.
But Sarah, I'll go ahead and start with my thoughts if that's okay. I think that sometimes you can't bring it all down at once, right? Like you can't, like all these conspiracy theories, they're all disparate in their ideas. And even though they might have the same methodological problems, sometimes it's, if you're going to eat an elephant, you just got to take it one bite at a time, right? So I wouldn't worry about trying to change everything at once. I would just look at kind of the smaller stuff. I think the moon landing thing is actually a really great example because that's a very, very specific claim that you can look at. You know, that's a historical event that we have lots of records on, and we have, you know, lots of evidence of that definitely happened. So I think this is a good time to ask questions like, you know, what makes you so sure that it didn't happen? How do we know events happened versus didn't happen? What do we usually use to confirm whether something happened or not? You know, because there's a tendency, especially when talking to conspiracy theorists, excuse me, where they want to get the motivations out first. They're like, this didn't happen because NASA's full of a bunch of liars, and they're always saying this and that, you know, and it's stuff that's like completely unrelated to the specific claim being made. So I would just look at it just like as microscopically as possible. Just look at the specific claim being made and think about like, oh, how do we evaluate this being true versus other similar claims like it? And can we know, you know, with a high degree of certainty whether or not this thing actually happened or not? So again, just starting off slow, taking the little bits, not taking everything all at once.
Yeah.
Because typically that's just too much. Ian, what do you think about this?
Well, I think the problem with conspiracy theorists is that there's a mindset that goes with it. And sometimes you can't get through to people who are conspiracy theorists. Or it takes a while. One thing I would suggest is that a lot of people I know who fall into this sort of stuff are really convinced by YouTube videos. I don't know why. So the good thing is there are a lot of good YouTube videos out there, like Neil deGrasse Tyson and people like that, where I mean Neil deGrasse Tyson was on Rogan or something like that, and they asked him about the moon landing, and it was like he gave the all the evidence, and you watch it and you go, yeah, I mean, he answers every question because, you know, they always say, what about the flag? And how come this looks like Utah? Or they have these weird questions. And like we've talked about earlier, Dan, where it's like sometimes conspiracy mongering people, they don't want the answer. They just want to ask questions. They want to keep asking the question. And so a lot of times what you have to do with them is ask them questions that the answer, like when people go flat earth with me, and they always say, well, follow the money. I say, cool. Where's the money in pretending the earth is flat? Is it globe companies? Is there Big Globe now? Or are the companies that make globes for elementary schools keeping the flat earth? Like, you have to at some point go, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. If somebody asks, so just instead of pushing back, you have to go, oh, interesting. Know the answer and have a few already set up and be like, what about this? How would you explain this? What about this? Well, how did they explain flight paths? You know, or whatever, you're talking flat earth, because then they have to go, let me go research that. And I think that there's things like that you can do that just ask the questions to them, because that's what they like. They like these questions that seem unanswerable.
Yeah.
And then go find the answer with them.
Yes, because it's almost as if the skepticism is more important than the truth. Right. Like, it's just the idea of being critical about this stuff is just something that you should apply to everything, but there's no conclusions that are drawn there. Like, I've definitely met people who, for example, think the Illuminati is in all the music videos and stuff like that. So if a new music video comes out, they're always going to look for signs of the Illuminati and stuff like that. You know, it's a self-confirming kind of belief.
Searching for triangles.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're always going to find triangles everywhere you look, you know? So it's like, okay, so, you know, you're almost combating an attitude more so than a coherent system of beliefs. And you kind of have to work with that attitude a little bit sometimes too.
And just be like, you know what, well, why would they want to do that? Like, why would a group of people care if to fake the moon landing? And here's the one with the moon landing that always gets me. So we faked the first one. Okay. Do we fake the 7 times we've been back? We've been to the moon 7 times.
Yeah, and there's different angles that different people who are conspiracists in that realm have answers to. Some of them say yes, we have. Some will say they're all fake and stuff.
Right.
Almost stronger than the hypothetical questions, I think, though, is just looking at whatever evidence they already have as claimed. Because, like Ian pointed out, like a lot of these things are coming from YouTube videos, and if you have the chance to sit down and watch a YouTube video with your dad and go for it like point by point, that's going to be way more impactful than watching somebody that they don't even know on YouTube going over some stuff, you know, because you're somebody that they know, you're somebody that they can have a conversation with. Like, it was way more interesting because like when I was kind of becoming an atheist and I was watching a lot of these YouTube videos and stuff like that, my conversations with people in real life were almost more impactful only because there's a question and response that's happening in real time that you just don't get from looking at online sources and stuff. So definitely conversation about this is good.
And also I think that you know, you can then watch another one. Like I said, you can watch a conspiracy one, answer some questions, then watch somebody like a Neil deGrasse Tyson or someone like that who answers those questions. And to me, it's like when we talked about a little bit just off air about like, you know, the COVID conspiracies and like pandemic, and people are like, well, look at these two doctors who say this thing. And you're like, well, first off, you're always talking about follow the money. Let's look at their money. She's writing a book, whatever the deal is. What are their motivations versus why do you trust these two doctors from Bakersfield or whatever versus the world's collective experts in epidemiology and immunology? Like, it's not just Dr. Fauci who's a million times more credible than the guys in Bakersfield, but there's also doctors in every country saying the same thing. And so the question is, why do you trust this group over this group? And the answer in reality is because it fits my narrative that I want to believe, but no one's ever going to say that. So why do you believe this random YouTube video versus a NASA scientist who explains it to you very clearly? Why do you go, yeah, but this guy over here who lives in his mom's basement is right? Why? And a lot of times the answer just comes down to cynicism, where they go, you can't trust the authorities. Okay, well then we're done.
Right. So Sierra, we're throwing a lot at you. What do you think of all this?
Yeah, I mean, I do try to take things like point by point with him. The roadblock that I'm running into with him is like whenever I start challenging him on any of his beliefs, he doesn't really listen. He just kind of shuts down. Like he doesn't respond very well to any kind of pushback. He just falls back on, I just trust my intuition above anything.
Yeah, you know, it's hard to have conversations with people. It's hard to have conversations with people who aren't doxastically open. You know, people who aren't willing to challenge their own ideas or narratives. And so the way I think about it is, if you're watching street epistemology videos with Anthony Magnamosco, look at the people who are, you know, who are responding to Anthony's questions, but then also asking Anthony questions himself. I find that those people who are a little bit more engaged in the conversation are thinking about this kind of stuff more. You know, if your dad's not asking you questions about things, then it's almost as if they're not interested in even having that conversation with you in the first place, right? So it's the problem of leading a horse to water and making him drink it too, right? Like, you can always try to lead him there, but at the end of the day, there is something on their part that has to make them, you know, more open to this stuff. What do you think, Ian?
Well, yeah, I would also say too that, going back to my asking questions, I think in something like this, if you have somebody who doesn't, who talks, it's all about just feels right to me, then to me the question is, okay, cool, I want to understand. So can you explain to me, because I can't get inside your feelings. I can't feel what you're feeling. So how can you explain it to me? What was it that convinced you? Other than feelings, there had to be something that changed your feelings. And if the answer is just, I feel this way, then then there's no way he could possibly convince somebody else. It's just like somebody has a God claim and their answer is, well, you know, it's just a personal experience. Well, that's great, but I can't, I'm not going to believe on your personal experience. So if I'm asking somebody, well, hey, you want to convince me of God, convince me in a way that isn't just, you got to be inside my head to believe it. Because, and if it's well, it's just a personal feeling. help me understand how you got there. Convince me, because I'm not going to be convinced by your personal feeling any more than you're going to be convinced by my personal feeling.
I really like this kind of framing for these kinds of things, because it puts you in the perspective of, well, I want to know why you believe the way that you do. And like, I want to give you the chance to convince me. And the questions that you start to ask them are questions you would genuinely want to know yourself.
Right.
Like I have a whole list of questions that if a flat earther talks to me again, I genuinely want to know the answer to. I want to know how satellites work and all this kind of other stuff, you know, like, because I need to know how that works in order for me to be convinced. And that puts the ball in their court.
Yeah.
You know, that puts the burden of proof for that claim to be like, all right, well, here's your chance to convince me. If you're just going to go personal experience, because like the moon landing, that's not a personal experience. No. That's a historical event. So we have to look at that differently than just like, oh, I think the Holy Spirit went through me, right? So yeah, what do you think, Sierra?
Yeah, like the the problem with like challenging his sense of intuition is that this is where some of the spirit science stuff starts coming in. He believes in something. I think he calls it the Akashi records. I don't know if you've ever heard of anything like that.
We need to dedicate an episode of Truth Wanted to just the spirit science stuff in general, because that's a whole can of worms. I need to find somebody who used to believe in that stuff to talk about it, because it's beyond the scope of what we can currently talk about.
Yeah, I mean, when I was on my journey, like away from religion, like immediately after leaving Christianity, I myself did start getting sucked into the spirit science stuff. I didn't get like too deeply into it, because like then I discovered like channels like Telltale and Mr. Atheist, and eventually I came upon like the ACA shows, which were just forgive the phrasing, a godsend.
I'll take it.
and yeah, so for like the problem that, well, like the problem with the whole Akashi records thing, like he believes that it's like this whole collection of all of the information for in the universe that certain people can access if they go through some kind of like mental training and stuff. And he believes that he has some level of access to these Akashi records, and that is where all of his confidence in his own intuition comes
real quick, Sierra, I gotta know, does your dad also believe in Atlantis?
Yes, he does. Okay,
all right, yes. Woo! I've always wanted to talk about Atlantis on this show, but again, it's something we got to get into next time. We got to wrap up this call to get to the next call here, Sierra. But the spirit science stuff, that's another can of worms. But the great thing about that is the spirit science kind of YouTube channels and stuff, they all have all that information out there. So like, and there's a lot of great responses to the spirit science stuff. Maybe not as many as there should be, but I know like Armored Skeptic at least has done a great breakdown on a lot of that kind of stuff. So that's at least something you can look at together and have a conversation about. So yeah, I'd say look at that stuff first if you're going to talk about that, just because. And normally, guys, I know I give context to a lot of what my callers are talking about, but again, it's too much. It's too much. I refuse to jump into it.
Yeah, there's just a lot.
It's a lot. And I will give proper context to it one day, but now is not that day. But Sierra, I hope you have great conversations with your dad. If you do have more conversations, please feel free to call back and report and tell us how those are going. But until then, hopefully our tips were useful for you, and keep on keeping on.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, have a good one.
Take care, man.
Yeah, like, ooh, conversations with family is tough.
Yeah.
You know, loved ones always seem to make things harder sometimes because they know the ins and outs of you,
Right.
and they can exploit that during conversation. I think it's easier to talk to strangers on the internet than it is to talk to my own family about this stuff. And I do it every week, but you know, like it's there's that extra element that just makes it kind of more difficult, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's also it's also this. There's like I guess some sort of a respect issue, or a even just friends or people you know personally. It's harder to. I mean, look at when you're arguing with somebody online. It escalates so quickly because there's anonymity there. There's no one's gonna punch you in the face or yell at you. So immediately people are like, "Shut up, you asshole!" Like they go immediately crazy. Whereas if you were face to face, they'd be, "Oh, let's talk about this." They wouldn't go that route.
I posted a tweet this week. This is a side note. I posted a tweet this week. All I said was, "Do clones have souls?" Okay, that's all I said. Obviously, I don't believe in souls, right? It's not a thing. But my comment to like ratio was the worst I've ever seen it for any tweet I've ever put out. So many people were mad. Like, they were just like, "Oh, this is dumb. Of course, souls aren't real. This is a stupid question." That was like 99% of the comments. It's just like, I was just tweeting just the tweet, guys. Y'all are getting mad over this. I don't understand.
Like, we should have worded it better. You should have said, "If there's such thing as a soul or a clone and a soul."
Yes, like, but that's the thing, right? It's like, look, if I actually believed in souls, and if this was something I was contemplating, those responses would not convince me in the slightest, because they're reactionary. They're not really breaking down the problem. And some of the comments were great, and they're like, "What do you mean by souls? What are we talking about doing this, and that?" You know, and there's like a breakdown there. But if you're just like, "Oh, this is dumb. This is stupid," it's like, okay, good luck trying to change somebody's mind by just calling them stupid all the time. It just doesn't. Most people don't work that way. So.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, I have a hard time. For me, it's I'm trying to do it more, but instead of combating them, I let them combat themselves, and like I try to ask those questions. Like, anytime someone gets into it with me about God anymore, the first thing I say is I go, "Okay, cool. We'll just define what you're talking about." Like, I get it all the time. Well, so you don't believe in God? I don't even know what you're talking about. Dumb. I don't. Give me your definition of what it is. You want me to know if you believe it or not? We can talk about it.
Yeah, just a God construct we can talk about, because God means so many different things to different people.
Right, and it's just like, let them I'm just going to keep asking questions and let you tell me what you want, and then we can maybe discuss it. But it's like, otherwise you're going off on all these tangents, and people are getting upset, and it's just easier just to find your terms and let's move on.
Yeah. Well, speaking of moving on.